this should be looking a lot better now.
Perfect.
That's perfect. All right.
All right. Well, after the really awkward start here, thank you guys for having us. We really appreciate it. I'll hand it over to Tanika and she'll get us kicked off.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tanika Williams, joined by my husband, Tom, and we're the founders of MedSurge Consulting, a small firm looking to make a big impact in the healthcare industry. Our goal is to help healthcare organizations build stronger teams by increasing
And the awkward pause while the slide doesn't advance.
I'm an RN with over 14 years experience in various healthcare settings. I developed a passion to improve morale and engagement after witnessing firsthand the burnout and disengagement that occurs in hospitals.
And I'm Tom. I'm an operations and technology consultant. I ran operations at GE Healthcare and other GE divisions for 12 years prior to becoming a consultant. And since then, I've worked with numerous healthcare facilities, Fortune 500 companies, and government organizations.
Our ask is we'd appreciate your feedback on our employee engagement framework. We're also open to collaboration with HR leaders and managers, receiving input for desired features and capabilities, which they would like to see in an engagement platform. And we would be interested in any connections with the local healthcare leaders. Disengaged employees cost U.S. companies an estimated $400 billion each year. In fact, a recent study found that 65% of employees admitted to being disengaged at work. Another study found that 45% of primary care physicians would quit if they could afford to. While at Mayo Clinic, study found that 54% of healthcare providers demonstrated signs of burnout. To solve this issue, the market is saturated with tools to help HR leaders, from simple surveys to elaborate apps. Many of these tools fail to meet the needs of the customer. Of the tools that do work, their costs can be often prohibitive or cause leaders to question their investment.
So in healthcare organizations, while profitability, like any business is a significant factor, they've got the ultimate metric of patient care and safety. So nurse engagement level is actually among the top 3 indicators of mortality risks in healthcare setting. And this was according to a Gallup study of more than 200 hospitals. And additionally, healthcare workers report that when they're disengaged, they only provide top quality service 23% of the time. So how can we improve engagement in healthcare facilities? It starts with equipping healthcare leaders with tools that provide relevant, insightful, and actionable information. Many of the engagement tools in the market focus on 12 factors or more, which really unnecessarily complicates the process. And asking someone to balance 12 or more plates while running an ER or a trauma unit, that's really failure in the making. So with this in mind, we've developed the Pulse platform, which encompasses the core factors of engagement while consolidating it into a more manageable framework. So the Pulse framework, it consists of 5 key pillars. They're really proven to drive engagement, and it's complemented with scientific approach to questions and scoring. So resources measures employee experience and their perception regarding the availability of tools, staffing, and resources. Communication measures the health of peer-to-peer and employee-to-manager relationships, while recognition addresses our need to feel appreciated and recognized for our contributions, especially in high-demand environments. The development pillar identifies alignment of career aspirations and opportunities for growth. As many people know, healthcare employees are often career-focused and driven, so employers really need to support their development and tap into this drive for the benefit of the organization. And finally, Outlook assesses employee perception of their future with the organization. So core elements of outlook are compensation, trust, and benefits. So to maximize success, a framework really needs a platform. And that's why we're building Pulse, which is our custom app that taps into the experience of team members, and it analyzes the information and provides targeted insights. So these insights result in greater improvements faster. So currently, we've developed the core of the platform, and our next steps are really to refine it and connect with managers and HR leaders, not necessarily within the healthcare organization, because engagement transcends across all organization and industries. But we really are looking for leaders to solicit their input and build out a list of desired features which may be missing from platforms they currently use. Really, when you boil it all down, our goal is to build the most robust platform and deliver it to our customers at a fraction of their current costs. So to wrap it up, once again, our ask is for any feedback on the framework. We're also open to collaboration with HR leaders and managers, soliciting inputs on desired features and capabilities. We'd also be interested in any connections with local healthcare leaders. So thanks for your time, and my apologies for the hiccup here getting started, but we really appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. Round of applause for you guys. So thoughts on framework. Interestingly enough, I'm going to kick this off while everybody else is figuring out what questions they want to be asking of you, because I work in organizational health and teamwork development. I spend a lot of my time doing that, and I do the underlying framework of Patrick Lencioni's organizational health pyramid. So I'm curious, as you guys are looking at engagement, what was the data set or the framework that you put your particular pillars together with?
Yeah, so there was not one particular framework, and that's where we're really also soliciting, input on that. We went through and we did research on, multiple engagement platforms that are out there. And as I had the opportunity to work with other organizations, just asking them, what platforms they use. And what we found was that there is a significant really disconnect, and there's no real standard way how a lot of these platforms are built. In terms of how the scoring is done, a lot of surveys will have 0 or 1 to 10, which is really not optimal. It's too many options, and there's a lot of gray in there. And so what we found is in terms of scoring, the Likert scale of 1 to 5 with a 3 neutral in the middle is actually optimal. And in terms of the questions and the way that they're asked, to ensure that you are, they're actually telling you something. Some questions are kind of open-ended, or the way that they're asked really doesn't get to what you're trying to understand. That's also a gap with a lot of engagement platforms out there. And there's also what's referred to as indexing, and that is, I kind of describe it as, remember like the iPhones where you would have the touch and you'd have to take your thumb and kind of roll it around to build out your full print, your full fingerprint. Mm-hmm. Same way when you're doing engagement questions, you've got to be able to ask a question really to kind of get to the root of the same issue, but ask it from multiple different angles to build out a solid understanding. And many of the platforms out there today, just quite frankly, they don't do that. So our approach wasn't necessarily built off of a specific platform, but it was really to more understand some of the science behind proper polling, surveying, scoring. And there may be an opportunity now to take that information and apply it to another framework. And really, that's kind of that is something that we're open to, although we feel like we've got a pretty solid foundation as it is, but there's always room for opportunity. So hopefully that answers your question.
Great, thank you. Carl?
Yeah, a great presentation, and I really love the clarity and simplicity of it. I think that real things that I missed is that you've got your 5 dimensions, but I didn't see in there a sense of purpose or leadership or mission or something like that. And in my experience, that's been one of the core things that leadership owes its employees in order to build motivation and engagement. And so, you know, maybe it was the way you described it, it's actually in there or something, but it felt like that was really very lacking. The other thing is I kind of got mixed messages a little bit, because at the beginning you said one of the things you're trying to do is to simplify. And it's like, okay, so a lot of people have 12 dimensions and that gets overly complicated and stuff. Okay, I get that. And then at the end you said, and we aim to have the most robust platform. And it felt like those two things were in tension, maybe even opposed to each other. And I can see perhaps how you could be doing both, but still it felt like a little bit of a disconnect. So I'm going to send you a chat with the, I've got a potential connection in UC Health who is responsible for hiring and engaging employees. And so that might be useful to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, thank you for that feedback. And yeah, I guess to your second question there, in response to maybe the contention between making it, you know, more simplified yet at the same time robust. And I guess I could have clarified that better. We want to simplify the framework so that people aren't focusing on too many dimensions, because everybody knows you can't focus on too many things. You have to focus on the things that have the biggest impact.
I buy that.
With the robustness, I was referring to the actual app, our platform that takes all that data and basically provides insights to the user. And so we think there's opportunities to expand that beyond just simple survey analytics, possibly to utilize it as a feedback portal where people can submit feedback anonymously, or, you know, with their name to you know, highlight any type of issues, positive or negative. So the robustness really is that's more directed towards the platform itself and building it out to a more full-featured app that can really help leaders drive an impact within your organization. So long answer to that, but hopefully that clarifies a little bit.
Yeah, thank you.
Greg,
Hi, everyone.
there we go.
Yeah, Greg from Denver. Great presentation, guys. I actually work in a similar space, and so I can feel your pain in trying to describe the solution you're trying to navigate. One of the things that's come up a lot for us, we're building a survey sort of CRM platform as well, and I was curious about, or maybe you could speak for everyone just to understand better. Like one, I think you mentioned engagement, but like actually getting people to participate is always sort of like one of the problems. But honestly, one of the surprising things that I found was people didn't know what to ask. And so like, do you provide sort of like a question bank or a framework or some methodology for them to like arrive at asking the right questions, or sort of developing that like over time?
That is a fantastic question. So thank you for asking that. So right now, as mentioned, we've got the 5 pillars. So the research that we've done and everything, really 40 questions is optimal. Anything beyond 40 questions, people will just start hitting the button just to get it over with, right? So it's really a matter of quality versus quantity. So within those 40 questions, we've really put a lot of research into directing those 40 questions. So there's 8 questions per 5 elements of the framework. And each of those elements have sub-elements that do address things like leadership and kind of get at some of those some of those other elements there. So initially, we're providing 40 questions that we have really vetted out and that we believe are high impact. Going forward, we are looking to develop a bank. And the challenge there is providing questions that someone could choose from, but still doing that proper indexing so that you're asking enough questions around a specific subject to get a full understanding of it. So that's our challenge with providing the question bank is you want to provide flexibility to make it more customizable to the user experience while at the same time maintaining the accuracy of it. So we will provide a question bank in the future, but we have to ensure that the structure of that doesn't dilute the accuracy of the analytics. Does that make sense?
No, totally. And I sent you a note. I'm happy to connect otherwise. One approach that I found that worked for us is we survey new orgs to figure out, we ask them questions that then actually generates the question bank, like beyond. So like in figuring out who they are and what they are, you might be able to like dynamically generate some of that as well. But yeah, this looks great.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that.
All right, we've got 2 more questions I want to get through before we need to move on. So Natalie.
Yeah, hi, thanks for the presentation. I guess my question is along the lines of the comments that have either been made on the chat or others, but it was around, given all of this and the complexity, in fact, of these kinds of surveys and frameworks, are you actually also in your business model, the business model you're considering, offering consulting with that? In other words, you know, working with the organizations, explaining to them how that's going to work, because otherwise you're going to get they're not going to get the results that they want. I mean, that goes to what, you know, Carl was saying about, you know, engaging leadership. So if that's not something that you had, I would suggest that you have, you know, you present like a package, you know, type of deal. You got your framework, but then there's all sorts of, you know, services that go around it, interpretation, use, whatever, you know, after that, and building that, because employee engagement could be very, you know, subjective.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And it's funny because you know, that's why, and we really struggle with this. So, you know, we're MedSurge Consulting. So we started with the consulting piece first and then realized we really needed a platform to help out with driving the change, right? Because what we didn't want to be is a consulting firm that comes in and tells gives feedback, but with no real tools to help execute the change. And so you're exactly right. The consulting services are paired with the app, because I think the app will highlight issues that we can then provide additional services on: change management, driving change, project management, identifying those opportunities, to where this is more than just an app. The app really is just to help us get a solid understanding, and from there, can take that information and work with these leaders to drive real impact across their organization.
Yeah, because your combined experience between Tanika as a nurse and your experience as a consultant, I mean, that's exactly what you're going to get to the, you know, to your customers. Customers, assuming hospitals or whatever medical areas. So
absolutely, yeah. The app is really honestly just a tool to help us pinpoint where the areas of the opportunity are. Beyond that, it's going to lead us down to, you know, optional package would be, you know, having us come in and help, you know, sift through the results and put programs and everything in place to get the results that they're looking for.
All right, last question, and then please feel free to type any further comments or questions for them into the chat box. So Cindy.
Hi guys, I know we've got another presentation coming up. I wanted to touch base on your slides and just make a couple thoughts to you about that. And I loved your presentation. I liked how it was simple and short and focused on just a few things. One thing to consider is your text size and color. The light gray is very hard to read and it was quite small. And I would suggest doubling or more the font size on those slides. I would also suggest another round of editing in terms of how many words are on the slide. and trying to make them easier for your audience to absorb while we're listening to you talking. The slide that you delivered, that was the pulse framework. If you build that slide, and what I mean by that is like let one icon show up each time you start talking about it, and then kind of go from left to right, you'll keep us really engaged kind of from a psychological perspective. Everything else is going to be coming up, and we will pay more attention over putting it all there at once, because you spent a really long time on that slide. And so that's a good way to stretch the content a bit. And I just wanted to say, I loved the slide that said the challenge. I think that was the one with the yellow boxes on the right. It was really clean. I would just, again, the same thing on the text color and size, but just a few thoughts for you on slide design. So good job.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that, Cindy.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you very much to Tom and Tanika. We appreciate your time, and continue please to provide that feedback through the chat if that's of interest to you. So happy round of applause for that.
Appreciate it.
That is the one thing I miss desperately on Zoom, is the sound of applause. I'm going to have to figure out like a sound effect somewhere. Somebody's got to figure that piece out.
Part of that, you can request that people take themselves off mute and just say, good job, you know.
One thing, Jana, that Nick does that's great is in the deck that he uses, he has like the the applause icon, like the soundbite in the slides. So you can like actually press it. It works great. It's a brilliant hack.
That's fantastic. All right. So I want to move us to our second presentation. We have Julie Ulstrup Photography, who is coming back to present with us again. So Julie has some questions about how you're using Zoom and a few things in that regard. Our fun fact with Julie, and at this point we could probably give you a couple, but the one we're going to go with today is that during lockdown, she has been riding the same 25-mile bike loop across the dams. And one, the idea of riding my bike 25 miles, different conversation altogether. But two, if you guys have better bike loops or different bike loops, she would love to hear about them so that she gets some variety in there. So Julie, thank you, and please take it away. We're going to unmute you though, Julie. There we go. There we go, Julie. We got you unmuted.
Thank you. Here I am. Thank you, Jana. Thank you, Natalie, for setting this up. I want to get these slides. Let's see if we can just do it like this.
All right. Did everybody just lose sound altogether? I'm hearing in the chat that we've all lost sound at the moment.
No, I haven't.
No, I haven't.
No.
Okay. Hearing
We're good.
Trying to set up a presentation.
Yeah,
right.
I'm just getting my slide.
So for those of you who are unaware, yesterday Zoom released 5.0.
Yep.
And I would guess that some of these issues are probably because there are 3 different versions of the Zoom platform running in this meeting. So if you would want to later today or before your next Zoom meeting, go ahead and upgrade to Zoom 5.0, you might have a little bit more help there. All right, Julie, if you are prepared, let's do the thing.
I'm prepared, but the slideshow, where do I go? Play from start. That's where I want to be. Okay, we'll start here. So this is me, Julie Ulstrup. I'm a photographer. And what I realized, and it's going to play. Sorry about that. Let me escape.
We're just having all sorts of fun on the Zoom chat.
We're having so much fun. I'm going to just show it like this.
All right, we can go with that.
That's fine. Yeah.
Can we go with that? Good.
Good enough. Yeah, good enough. Just go.
Perfect. And my ask for today is if anybody has anywhere that they feel like this could be a helpful presentation, this can be from 6 minutes. I'm going to be talking very fast for this presentation today to an hour long. And if anybody has any ideas of places that might benefit from this, That's my ask for today. Video conferencing sucks. The BBC, the New York Times, USA Today, everybody has an opinion about video conferencing and why Zoom sucks. The New York Times says that you feel awkward and unfulfilled in a video meeting. You feel fatigued. BBC says it requires more focus and it's harder to process, so we have a lot of dissonance. And then USA Today says that there are those of us who are doing this all day long, back to back, and it's really psychologically off-putting. And what I realized is that my experience as a photographer, especially a portrait photographer, a branding and headshot photographer, is that I work with people every day who feel off-put in front of a camera. So what I do with my clients in a portrait session are some of the things that I'm going to share with you today that can help enhance your Zoom experience. Here's my friend. Some of you saw her at happy hour. Having photographs in a slide deck or anything that help you connect with people is really, really important. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples. This is a headshot client, before and after, and the before photograph is absolutely a photograph that this client was using on his email signature. The after, when he put that on his signature, he had his colleagues in China say, "Oh, you look so sincere, you look so much more engaged," which again, important in a Zoom meeting, to be sincere, to be engaged, to be on it. And so I'm going to share some of those tips. And here's a female version of the same thing. So what we have going on is we're working with the ABCs. I want you to think about when you're in a Zoom meeting, when you're in an online platform like this, always being conscious. And the first thing is to be aware. When I have a portrait session, when I'm meeting with somebody in person, when I have a phone call, I'm fully aware. And so there's a really good way to just get into your head before you're going into a meeting. What is it that I'm coming to this meeting for? What do I want to get out of it? What do I want to share? How do I want to engage with the people who are there? So remember, even in a Zoom meeting, to be aware. It's not great practice to be checking your email, to be doing all of the other things that can be really distracting on a Zoom call. So awareness is the first place that we start. This is an important one. Breath, breathing. Take a nice deep breath in and exhale. And if you need to do that a couple of times during a meeting, I know things can go really fast. It helps you focus. It helps you focus when you breathe in a presentation. Whether you are giving the presentation or whether you are a participant in the meeting. And then connecting with yourself first before you go to the meeting, and then connecting with other people in the meeting. The presentation that we had a couple weeks ago, Stephen Krause gave us great tips for looking right at the camera in the meeting. One of the things I want to suggest is really connecting with your own energy before you come in. One of the things you can do, and we can try it right now if you want to, is to put your hands together, rub them together, rub them together. And you're feeling probably some heat and some warmth. So that's your life force energy. And you can surround your whole self with that energy and connect to the very beginning thing. The first thing that I recommended is being aware. How do you want to be aware of what you are putting out, what you are sharing in a Zoom meeting, in any kind of teleconference meeting, and what you are receiving? So A, B, C, be aware, breathe, and connect. Always be conscious of how you are engaging in a meeting and how you want to share and what you want to receive when you are starting that meeting. Again, I am Julie Ulstrup. If you have any places, the feedback that I'd like is the content, of course. And if you know of any places that are looking for speakers to help people become better speakers, especially during this time of Zoom fatigue, awkwardness, lack of focus, and meeting to meeting to meeting, back to back and all day long, I would appreciate it.
Thanks, Julie.
All right. Thank you, Julie. Appreciate that. So feedback for Julie, and I think Cindy's probably right out of the gate, which
Perfect.
doesn't surprise me in the least. Let's run with that, Cindy.
Hi, Julie. I've seen your name so much. It's really nice to meet you finally and kind of hear more about what you do. I love what you shared today, and it really strikes a place in me because I've been thinking a lot about Zoom fatigue and what the reasons for it are. And one of my theories is that because we're all a little 1-by-1 box on a screen that has only, above our shoulders showing, the expectation for what we are supposed to do is incredibly different than when we're all sitting in a room together. So and I use 1 Million Cups kind of as an example. When we're all sitting in the room at the Articulate at 1 Million Cups, and I'm sitting next to Carl or Harrison or whatever, we're listening to this speaker, but not everyone is able to see each of us in the middle of the presentation. And so we can, switch our posture, or we can look around the room, or we can pull out a stick of gum and nobody knows or cares. But there's this feeling of expectation that I think comes with a Zoom call when we're all right like we are right now. I can look at everyone's face if I want to while the presenter is presenting. And that has brought, I think, for participants as well, a lot of anxiety. And I know that presentation anxiety on Zoom is real because I hear it when I'm in these all-day, pitch competitions or all-day pitch events. You can see and feel that all eyes are on the speaker in a very unique and different way, and that our whole bodies are not visible or able to be read like a nonverbal component. It really has just changed the game. So I loved what you said about awareness and breathing and connecting. I also want to underscore, when it comes to slide decks and such, I say this so much, but pictures of people are so critical. If you have a slide deck and you don't have any people in it with facial expressions or emotions, find some, because that's how we connect with other people, is human to human. So that's my 2 cents, but that was great. I completely agree.
Thanks, Cindy.
Great. Greg?
Hi, Cindy. I like the presentation. I absolutely agree with Cindy. Oh, sorry, not Cindy. I agree with what Cindy just said. And I think it was great. Actually, the only feedback I had is I feel like your slide should have been all pictures. I feel like you could have really delivered this point with using more of your photography and sort of bringing the stories to life. The words could easily have sort of sat on top of your photography. I think as you touch on some of those points, even if it's like a slideshow of images changing behind the ground, in the background, or, like the idea of sort of motion or emotion. I actually did a talk yesterday on imposter syndrome, and it was the first time ever where I did videos in the background. And that little bit of movement actually wasn't a distraction. It's more about bringing ideas to life, right? So your words are sort of there, but I do think because you have photography, you have amazing photography, making that more of the story and demonstrating more of what you're discussing, I think would have even made the point more effective.
Thank you.
Great. Carl?
Hey, Julie. So I think we're hearing a little bit of a theme here. on some things. Zoom fatigue is definitely a real thing. I think another aspect of it is that it's different for people who haven't been on video a lot. The idea of how do you perform on a Zoom video, because it really is a ongoing performance that you are trying to maintain for the full period of the session. And so it that's another source of stress. And I also think that people are thinking a bit about, you know, I'm looking into people's personal lives in the background behind them. Oh my God, people are looking at my personal life behind me. So there's a weird little bit of stress that we've added to this with so many people being at home or, you know, in various situations, including animals and children and all that stuff. I definitely missed the impact of all of the wonderful photography that you do. The pictures that you had were great, and that's nice, but that's such a small fraction of the great work that you do. And so seeing the same photo repeated a few times, it's like, oh man, I want to see some more of her great stuff. And so I kind of missed that. And even though you were talking about Zoom, you didn't have any pictures of Zoom. And so if you're going to have a presentation that talks about what Zoom stress is like and things like that, or even just mention it, you might flash up a picture like what we're looking at on the screen right now, just to get people oriented about how much different that is than the kind of portrait photography that you normally do.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Julie, I'm going to give you some tough love.
Give me tough
in
love.
a couple of different fashions here for a couple of different reasons as our final comment as we're going forward. One, I have not heard anything in this presentation that I have not heard in another presentation about how to be successful on Zoom. So I don't have anything in your content that necessarily brings out a differentiator that says that you're an expert in this particular thing. It is the same kind of stuff that's being actually put out by the New York Times or the BBB or any of those other things. So I really want something unique from your perspective as a person who helps people be presented in the best light possible in the way that they do that. And then the second piece of feedback I have on that is there is nothing in this presentation outside of your pictures that gives me an idea of the depth of expertise you have as a photographer. You can show me your work, and I get that you're a good photographer, but there is a truckload of things you have to know to be as good a photographer as you are. So I really, really want you to bring forward that deep expertise that you bring so that we have that differentiator, because otherwise it's the same damn presentation I've seen about Zoom fatigue and how to be on Zoom, and you know, you need this and you need that and you're supposed to be doing this and it's really hard to connect. I want you to be different, and that's where I'm missing something.
That's great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. So as we end up in the last 10 minutes here, I want to take a minute and check in with our community and see where we are at as people. So as we traditionally do, I have the 3 questions for our group today. Who's had a win in the past week? Who could use a little bit of help in some capacity, or who has something that we should all know about, either a resource or an opportunity? So I'm going to pick on Greg and start with that, because Greg has a meetup he would like to let us all know about.
Thanks, Jen. I appreciate that. Hi, everyone. So I'm from the Denver 1 Million Cups, but I also run Denver Founders Meetup. And we have today Brad Feld coming by to do a talk. We're starting at 4:30. He'll be on at about 4:45. It's about the state of startups in Colorado. So all over the state, not like just a Denver thing. Specifically though, we're going to be talking to him about like what COVID the implications on COVID for fundraising or sort of growing your business, or which opportunities maybe are most interesting or maybe dying at this point in time from the venture side of things. So if that is of interest, I just put a link in there for the meetup. We think we're going to have like over 200 people at it. It's going to be on YouTube, live streamed. And we welcome, if you want or have questions, feel free to go over to the YouTube video now and just leave your questions there ahead of time, and we'll be able to feature them during the talk if we find a moment to do so. So thanks.
Greg, I'm going to actually ask you to back up just a moment, because
Sure.
we don't have an entire audience that's deeply invested in the full Colorado startup community. So why is it a big deal you're talking with Brad Feld, of all people?
Sorry. Yeah. So if you don't know who Brad Feld is was one of the original people from Techstars. He's also one of the managing partners at the Foundry Group. He's also just like an amazingly good guy. Really involved in helping the Colorado community. He's been involved with all forms of entrepreneurship. I don't think you need to have a startup. I think, you know, everyone's probably affected by entrepreneurship on one end of the stick or the other. And Brad's just a great person. He's got a lot of insight, a lot of access to what's going on. They've been putting together programs to help save small businesses, to help startups figure out what they should do. And I think it's just a chance to hear how others maybe are weathering it from a different point of view, even if you're not like actually a founder or a startup right now.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So yeah, my favorite thing about Brad is not only has he dumped millions and millions of dollars into helping startups move forward, he is genuinely a good guy. And if you actually reach out to him 9 times out of 10, he will actually get back to you. So that's always a wonderful thing that I like to see. Carl, have you got a win for us this week?
Well, it's I'm not sure it's a win. That's the question mark that I have. But I got signed up for a couple of engagement on doing detailed Zoom training. So 1 as an attendee, 2 as a presenter, and 3 as an organizer, because I did so much of that in the last couple of months. And so, you know, I'm going into it. It's like, well, it got the knowledge, but I'm so Zoom overloaded in my brain and heart right now that sometimes I wonder, do I really want to do this again? So but anyway, that's something that I got hooked up with now, and it's fun and it's interesting. I also want to put in a plug for Brad Feld, as well as I follow his blog, which would be highly recommended. So if you want to see what he's really about and the kind of territory that he covers, he is definitely one of those forward-thinking leaders in the state of Colorado. So check that out.
Very cool. Thank you, Carl. Janelle, have you got a win for us this week?
Oh, I have a win. It's a shout out to Jenny Morse, one of our wonderful people that I've met through A Million Cups. Jenny is starting her marketing efforts for a new class that she's doing, which is Better Business Writing, which I think is going to be an awesome class. And I'm so excited to be part of helping her to promote it. So that is our win right now. I also have another question with respect to the Brad Feld thing, because I'd like to put it on our company Slack for people that might want to tune in. Greg, what event is that? I'm sorry, I missed it. I have like Zoom overload right now. So let me know.
Yeah, I'll put a link right back in one more time, but it's over Denver Founders. If you're on Meetup, you can find that.
Okay.
And
what time?
I'll drop a link. It's we start at 4:30, and Brad will be on from 4:45 to 5:45.
That'd be great.
And then we'll probably have some questions and Q&A afterwards as well. So I'll be hosting with Chris Franks.
He has a lot of fans in our office, so that might be one of
good.
the
Yeah,
people.
he's really is a great guy. He was an investor in my last company also, and got to know him pretty well.
Awesome.
Yeah, wonderful person. Yeah.
I will say, Janelle, you have brought me joy this morning because I got to watch Jenny blush while you praised her all over the place. And that's always
worth it. That is worth it. The Jenny blush is really.
Thanks, Janelle.
No, thank you.
Brendan, what do you have to pass on to us today?
Just a couple of resources. Wins, this week I got nothing, but resources I do have. So there's a site called Udemy that is doing a 95% off on their different courses that they offer. So actually, I'm a financial advisor, and I work with a lot of small business and startups. I sent it out to a few clients, and they sent me back some cool stuff. There's a online marketing course on there that's $10 that actually looks really good, and in the new environment of everything being online for a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners, definitely a major resource. So I'll drop that in the chat. One other thing, we're doing a webinar this coming, it'll be Tuesday the 19th. It's called the Rev Up Your Revenue. So we have a guest speaker, Trace Reddick. He's got a really good book on Amazon, and he'll be talking about different ways for small business owners to increase their revenue. So I'll put that in the chat as well. So yeah, that's about all I got.
Great, appreciate it. So I have a win for us this week. I want to do a quick shout out to Chris Radliff, who, for many of you who don't know, the reason Launch NoCo looks as good as it does on a regular basis is because we have a phenomenally talented graphic designer. So if you've been on the Meetup group lately, you've seen the new branding that's starting to show up in various places for us. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then I just want to, in the last minute here, remind everybody to join us tomorrow evening for Sips and Tips at 4:30. You are required to bring your own drink. Last week we had people who brought multiple drinks to it. So this got to be a very interesting thing altogether very quickly, and it was great. So we're looking forward to seeing you guys. And then we have our 2 speakers on tap for next week. Please make sure that you are bookmarking this new Zoom link. It is the new permanent one. We opted to go with a dedicated meeting link for this one rather than the general link. And I think that'll be working out better for us. So those are the updates for the week. Go out, have a good time, and work hard, everyone. And we'll see you back here next week.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Jenna.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Good seeing you,
Thanks for having us.
See you all.
Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.